Friends, and good morning to all of you. Welcome to my class. I am Mohammad Tarique, and today we are going to discuss how to prepare history for civil services exam. Now, this is a topic which you all know, very important for all the stages of your exam, whether it is prelims or it is main or it is interview. The questions which is being asked nowadays are interdisciplinary, and you can see there are two types of questions which is asked. One is very directly from history, and one is linked from certain part of history, but the questions may be of your polity, that is paper 2. The questions may be part of your IR, again paper 2. The questions may be from social issues, again paper 1. The questions may be part of Indian economy, again paper 3, but part from history. There are questions in ethics, and of course, there are questions in your essay. Now, in all these papers, you would find the impact of history, especially modern Indian history, impacts almost all paper of social sciences, because even if you study post-independent history and you study Indian economy, post-Indian Indian history, and the paper like IR polity, you would find the impact of history. So the value of this paper is very high, and it should not be taken only like 120 to 140 marks for the main exam, but as I told, it impacts many more parts of your general studies. That is the first thing which I wanted to tell all the time. The second important point is, which is important for this exam, is that for your prelims, there are on an average 16 to 22 questions out of 100 they are asking every year. Now, asking from the first two parts, and these are modern Indian history as well as art and culture. Now, this art and culture is not a separate part, it's a part of history, but the focus is not on political history. The focus is more on architecture, the more on sculpture, it is more on, paintings, more on some other form of arts, literature. So these are all forms of various regional arts, some imperial arts like Mauryas, Guptas, Sultans of Delhi, Mughals. This we call imperial art. But Cholas, Pallavas, Rashtrakutas, then Bengal, Gujarat, Kashmir, some of these regional states like Vijayanagar, Bahmanis, they are asking questions from that area. And if you are good in these two papers, then out of 16, 20, you can do at least 70% of the question. The third important area which I have shortlisted for you is ancient history. Now, in ancient history, again, parts of religion, parts of some edicts, parts of certain coins, archaeological sites and its finding, some famous kings and their contributions, parts of administration. So it's a whole lot of ancient history, but if you're good at least in certain part, you can crack some of the good questions. And the last in the list is medieval. So this, in terms of importance as far as the trend of prelims is concerned in the last 5 6 years. Now, as far as the main exam is concerned, again, the first focus is modern Indian history. Okay, uh, the first focus is modern Indian history. The second part is once again art and culture. Now, in this art and culture, as I told you, or ancient medieval history, one question is very specific question. For instance, they put Gandhi, okay, in a particular situation, Gandhi at Champaran, Gandhi at Dandi. Question would be a thematic question. It could be like a survey sort of questions in which a particular period would be taken. For instance, there was a question that role of women during freedom struggle. Now, this question requires your overall bird's eye views on women in our freedom struggle, say from 1857 till 1947. And you have to first shortlist those 10, 12 women and their contribution. That is one side. Then women as a group, as a social groups in different movement, particularly Mahatma Gandhi's movement after non-cooperation onwards, and what kind of elements the women brought it. For instance, anti-liquor movement was very active once women joined. For instance, Khadi program became more popular once women joined. Now, these are the issues which you have to highlight when the questions like thematic is asked, role of women. Similarly, they can ask role of Dalit, role of tribals, role of farmers, peasants movement. So two types of questions, one very, very specific, one thematic. Now, what is the idea behind of these kind of questions? You know, UPSC always tries to, and I know it personally with the interaction of some of the UPSC members, former chairman, etc., that they say that we want to, watch the word, outsmart the coaching institutes, right? Because their concern is that in most coaching institutes you are getting all ready-made materials, okay? You mug this up materials and certain set questions are asked, you remember it and you answer it. So your ability of thinking, your ability of analyzing, your ability of coming to certain conclusion on your own, based on your own studies, analysis and wisdom, that is not checked once the traditional questions is asked. So they would always tweak the questions language and put you in a situation where the emphasis is that you are forced to think in exam hall. So if your knowledge is wide, you're well read, you're aware about different interpretation of history. For instance, if you just remember the question which they asked last year, that both Gandhi and B.R. Ambedkar wanted to uplift Dalit, but their approaches were different. Comment. That was the question. Now, in that question, you read it, whatever spectrum and materials of the coaching. You cannot answer this question in exam hall for thinking 2 minutes and writing in next 7 8 minutes. That's the maximum time you get it for one question. That was only possible when, while studying this topic, you were told by the teacher to think on your own, or the teacher would have helped you to think that how Gandhi's approaches, for instance, Gandhi was not against caste. Ambedkar was totally against caste. For instance, Gandhi did not criticize Hindu religion for untouchability, and he said it has entered somehow and it has to go. But there is nothing wrong in Hindu religion, nothing wrong in caste system. Whereas Ambedkar squarely blamed Hindu religion for caste and caste for untouchability. So Ambedkar would argue that untouchability can only go when you annihilate caste, when you end this caste. And he was, of course, very vocal against the very system of life as propounded in Hinduism. And that is why it is not surprising that in 1956, Ambedkar converted to Neo Buddhist religion. But how Gandhi and Ambedkar was different, as I just gave you a few examples. Of course, once we attend the class, you would understand that how in many more areas they were different. So this is what the point is, that a lot of such questions they're asking nowadays, the focus is on thinking. Now the question is how to develop this habit of thinking. So there's certain basic rules. The basic rules is that when you take subjects like history as a GS, general studies, you have to read some basic, basic textbook. Okay, you know, there is no alternate of some textbook, standard textbook written by prominent historians. Now, when it comes to modern history, there are few names. You can read one of those names. Bipan Chandra's many books. One is Modern India, one is India's Struggle for Independence, one is Shikhar Bandhopadhyay. He has written also a very interesting book recently, and that book is Plasi to Partition. Then there's a book written by Sumit Sarkar, that is Modern India. Though many people say that it is a Marxist oriented, but I would suggest for the subjects like peasants, for the subjects like tribals, these are very good books which you can refer to. Now, there's another book revised recently, and that is Advanced History of Modern India, and this is written by S.N. Sen. Now, I'm not suggesting you to read all these. I would suggest you read one. Like, if suppose you're reading this one, Advanced History of Modern India. Now, the advantage of such kind of book is it is written by prominent historians. The guides, the materials are not written by historians. These are all cut and paste from various sources. And since they have taken it from various sources, so it is a very poor patch of work and a lot of contradictions in such kind of book. Whereas if it is written by a prominent authors, then you are sure that there is, coherence in their writing. There is one point of view which they have taken, and they would stick to that point of view, because in history interpretation varies a lot. So choose one of them and read it two, three, four times. Then you can take it any guide, any material, and but that is only for factual part. That is only for the information part, not for interpretation part. Because for interpretation, you have to seek help of an expert of that subject who are called authority. So if you are taking, say, ancient Indian history, in ancient Indian history, there are some famous authorities, historians. R.S. Sharma, very famous historian known all over the world for his contribution in ancient history. He wrote several books. For you, there is one wonderful book, and I would strongly recommend for that. And the book was is India's Ancient Past. Okay, this is a revised book of old NCERT published by Oxford University Press. The beauty of the book is that it is written very lucidly, and a complete survey of ancient history, including many parts of art and culture. A lot of questions for you, prelims, would come from that book. Second important author you can refer is T.N. Jha, and he also has written several books. But one very, thin book. Students generally like a book which is a small, which is hardly 150 pages, and this book is An Introduction to Ancient Indian History. Now, this would take you from Indus Valley Civilization to Harshavardhan in a very lucid manner and with all correct facts and figure. So these are the two great writers. You can add in your itinerary another great historian, Romila Thapar. She has also written several books. But for you people, IS aspirants, there is one interesting book, History of Early India, and this come up to 10th century. That means even certain part of early medieval history is covered. right from early ancient history. And of course, great detailed works, comprehensively written, a lot of topics for your art and culture and general parts of ancient history is also covered. So I would suggest choose any of the three. First, read it thoroughly, and once you have taken certain notes from that one, then you go for whichever coaching materials and guides you study. But make sure that there is no shortcut. There's no shortcut in IAS exam. There's no shortcut in reading history. It will take time, and do not worry about the time. In any case, for any beginners, minimum 18 to 22 months are required to prepare this exam thoroughly, that too when you are working 10 to 12 hours a day. Now I know it for certainty with all my experiences of last 25 years with a lot of toppers from my institution in Central University Delhi, as well as the places 18 to 22 months, believe me, is nothing in your life if the reward is such a big thing like IAS, IPS and IRS, etc. Because if you remember, even when you prepared your BTech, you gave you 4 to 5 years. Your medicine, you gave almost 6 years, and various other courses you have devoted already 4 to 6 years. But still, many of you are wondering where to go. So, if planned studies, and in this planned studies, you need help of each subject experts. Like I am telling you right now, briefly about history, it is not completely, but briefly, I hope whatever we discuss in the last few minutes, it must have helped. From what to read, one important thing about history is how to read. Okay, now there are different ways. It is not like one method which I would suggest you would be the only method one, but this is very interesting. You can try. One method is that suppose you are preparing ancient history. So I would suggest you first read one book out of the given list thoroughly in one, you know, set of sitting, say in the 1 week, only ancient history, and you're not reading modern, you're not reading medieval or world history. And from first chapter to last chapter, you read it, finish it. So you would have a glance of the entire Harshvardhana, etc. Once you have finished that, now you have fair idea okay, what are the things in history they cover actually. Then in the second stage, you take a topic from history and you can take it chronologically. For instance, you take it from Indus Valley. Okay, now, Indus Valley Civilization, you read it from one source, that is one standard textbook. Then you read from another source the same chapter, that is guide or material. And then you take some text from market or online, that is for question banks. So, after reading Indus Valley Civilization from 2 or 3 sources, just check it. That 30-40 question you can answer in MCQ forms or not. You can answer in subjective type or not. Or you can do that 1, 2, and 3, suppose chapter Indus Valley, then Vedic, and then Jainism. Suppose 3 chapters you have finished. Now, after finishing these 3 chapters from 2 sources or 3 sources, then you go for question bank and then you increase this number to say 60 to 70 objective type questions, 4 to 6 subjective type questions, and you practice on your own. Once you have done it, then go for the next chapter, fourth, fifth, and sixth chapters. You go very, precisely 1 to 3 chapters. And after this question bank, the greatest advantage is that when you see, you know, in question forms and you get it four options A, B, C, D, then your mind works differently. And once you have selected, okay, B is the correct answer, so that would be like in your memory for very, very long time. That is the advantage of looking at questions regularly, consolidating what chapters you have already read it. So once you have covered three chapters or two chapters or even one chapter, then make sure you attempt few MCQ, and the MCQ question should come from some authentic sources. There are good coaching institutions in Delhi, and many of them have pasted their questions on online also. The advantage of questions of history is that even if you take it questions of last year or 5 years back, it is useful, unlike in economics and geography and science tech, where the data completely changes and it could be dangerous also. But in history, facts related to ancient history or modern history by and large would remain same. So this is one a very important strategy our students have adopted, and they are getting in prelims, most of them in 110 to 120 bracket easily each year. Those who passed and those who could not finally make it, at least in the prelims, they are getting very, very good score. And history is definitely helping them because, as I told in the beginning, 16 to 22 question is a huge number. That is as much percentage out of 100 question, and that can like make or break your selection. So the strategy which I just covered, I hope you understood that these parts of history would help you. Now, apart from this, in the main exam, because do not forget the ultimate exam is the main exam. The questions which they are asking, as I told you, are two types: 5 to 6 years questions asked in UPSC. And once you read that, suppose 1, 2, 3 chapters of modern history or ancient history, then you attempt those questions yourself. Get it checked from someone who has understanding of history. So preferably a teacher who is teaching history for either civil services aspirants or he is teaching in some reputed college or university. Now, why it is important? Because when a person who is teaching either in civil services or college or university, the moment he would see your 150 words, 250 words, he can easily detect A, what are the factual errors you have written, okay? B, what are the interpretations you have given, and those interpretations are correct or wrong or ambiguous. C, there is a chronology of your writing. Have you followed that chronology? Have you given importance to certain point first or least important at the end? Or you have just written as it came to your memory? Another important point is the question which is asked and your answer has a link, or you have deviated from the question. And that is a very common problem which I know it by fact on my own, because I checked several copies in universities and competitive exams, and many of my colleagues and seniors who goes to UPSC, and they also complain the same thing, that the question was something else and the student gave a complete different answer. So it is like a boxing ring in which there are two boxes and one referee, and you have to play within the ring and within the rules. You cannot break the rules. That the question which is asked, you should stick to that question rather than you should tell the teacher that you know this much and you know that also. Another important point while writing the answer is the flow of your writing. Now, the flow comes only when there is a clarity in your thoughts. When your thoughts are very clear before you start writing, that from where you would start and where you would end, and what kind of material you are going to put in your writing, then only there would be a flow. And that enhances the number from say 40% to 60% straight away if you follow these basic rules of writings. Of course, there are some minor things which I would say also important. You cannot take it lightly. One is the grammar which you are using, one is the spellings which you are using, and one very important point is the key words which you are using. Are you sure that the words which you have used was the appropriate word? In subjects like history, when you are using the word like fundamentalism, and when you are using the word say fanaticism, these are two different words. When you are using the word orthodoxy, and when you're using the word, you know, this fanatic, again, these are two different words. Now, many times students, when use the word communalism, they do not know what exactly communalism is. When they write the word secularism, they do not know. When they write the word liberalism, socialism, communism, now you have hundreds of such words, but you're not sure where to use these words. So, when you read the good historians, good authors, you would find that the choice of words are very important, and you can follow those words which is written and given by the experts. So I hope these kind of tips would help. In half an hour, I think it was more than enough. I covered little bit different parts of strategy, right from the sources, ancient, medieval, modern, and art and culture. Which one is more important? I told you. Then I told you how to prepare for prelims as well as mains, chapter wise, and of course, answer writings. Just last tips for you, that in the beginning of your stages of preparation, your reading part should be more, revision should be little less, and writing and uh, practicing with MCQ should be less. But as you progress, the reading part should reduce and revision and writing part should increase. But at no point you can ignore revision part and writing both MCQ as well as subjective time. So wish you all the best. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much for watching me. And my referral code at Unacademy is Mohammad Tarique. Thank you very much.